All right. Welcome back to the Good Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Martinez, with my co-host, Dr. Dave Miller. We are here at the Gaines Station Gym, and I got to start making sure I say like, comment, subscribe. I got to start
like,
saying that.
comment, subscribe.
Yeah, I got to start saying that.
The trifecta.
Yeah, the trifecta of things. So our topic today is going to be defeat is psychological. And I think that's going to be an important topic because I think a lot of people defeat themselves before the fight even starts. So Miguel, go ahead and throw the intro right there. Point number one we're talking about is like loss is universal, but people lie to themselves about it. This topic came because me and Dave were just talking about watching the show called Alone on Netflix, and they put people out in the woods and they basically give them a couple like survival tools, and they're trying to see, I guess, who lasts the longest. Like, I'm assuming that's the concept of the game. They're not against each other; they're just against nature. And I saw two guys on there who both kind of in the same way. And it's not to say that the situation isn't hard, but one guy, he basically talked about repressing his feelings like so much. So he went and he caught like, I don't know, 5 big fat ass fish. They're called pikes. I don't know shit about fishing, but they're like these giant ass fish. So he had food, he had shelter, everything else. But he said what was messing him up is that he kept thinking about his son, and he kept thinking about how he deals with emotions and how he, instead of telling his son, I guess, to deal with his emotions in a healthy way, he kept telling his son to like repress them. And you could tell that there was some kind of like, I think him being out in the wilderness was making him really reflect on like what he was teaching his son, and maybe that wasn't the right way. And then at a certain point, he just was like, I can't be out here anymore. I want to say, I don't want to say like he was going to look like he was going to, off himself, but the way he was talking was like someone who was like never really sat there with their own emotions, and it was like you could tell that kind of took him out. Maybe it was a good thing, maybe it was a bad thing, I don't know, but he ended up leaving.
Like, it was the first time he didn't have a nagging wife at him.
Yeah, bringing him down.
That right, man. I can't think of more positive things right now.
And yeah, so he was basically looked like he was kind of defeated by his own thoughts, and maybe it was a good thing for him because maybe that gave him a chance. He kept saying this thing which made a lot of sense. It was like, it's not that you don't hear God or God doesn't talk to you, but it's louder when you're kind of by yourself. You know what I mean? There's no one else to talk to.
There's always that, and you do need those moments of reflection, man, where you can actually be by yourself. And some people might scoff at something like this, but sometimes being by yourself and then actually vocalizing what's going on in your head, out loud, you actually do it can do a better processing of your own thoughts that way. I mean, they can be going on in your head, but until you actually hear them, they may not quite register all the way to where then you start, coming up with like a path forward.
No, I agree with you. I think what you're saying is, I think goes along the lines of if you think it, you say it, you hear it. So maybe you're thinking it, so you need to vocalize it, you need to hear it. And it's kind of helps you put things in perspective. And I think everyone's kind of done that when they're by themselves. It's like when something's like not going your way, you're kind of like, this is fucked. Or, you know what I mean? I think sometimes you need to hear it. Like, you need to be like, okay, I'm like, this shit sucks right now, but I need to get through it. It's almost, I don't want to say you're not motivating yourself, but you're kind of trying to refocus, it feels like.
I think maybe some people maybe even go the path of writing something down. But I mean, it's basically, taking something internal, reframing it to external, and then taking it back in, actually does change the processing. And I've done that before at times when I'm trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And it's getting frustrating. And it was stop, take a breath. What am I actually dealing with? And then I'll spell it out, and then I'll go, oh, I'm missing this and this and this.
Yeah.
And then, the solution presents itself.
It's like taking that breather to like look for the solution and not just keep focusing on the problem.
Yeah.
Of what's going on. And so I have some examples of some real life losses. It says career success, but failing relationships, good relationships, but loss of purpose or career. Your success, your career, it never pans out the way that you want it to be. Your business is not where you want it to be. Not getting promoted or raises, divorce, death of people that you love, injuries, addiction, relapse, or losing your prime years and feeling behind. That kind of are some of the caveats for like pushing people like over the edge. And I still don't remember where I heard it, but I think it's true. It's just that it's not one loss. It's usually a series of losses that make you feel like you're losing. And I think that's what kind of happens, like your relationship doesn't go good, affects your workflow, then you're maybe not working out. And now those series of losses make you feel like, oh, am I a loser?
I think some of that is actually a form of self-defeat because I would actually claim it to be a failure of perception to think that so many things should actually be exactly the way you want it, or it's just going to pan out the way you imagine it. Nothing ever works that way, and so there's always an adaptation that has to be made in order to affect changes that are going to shift it in one direction or another.
And I also think it's kind of perception, is if you want something and maybe these are things that just testing you to see how much you really want it. You know what I mean? If you want to start a business, you're gonna hit obstacles. And if every time you hit an obstacle, you're gonna be like, oh, well, is this really for me? And it kind of tests your resolve and your what do they say? What do they call it? Your metal. Right. About like what are you really made of? And I think, like you said, it does become kind of a like I want to, it's not a victim thing, but you start just believing like, hey, things are not working out for me, and everything's against me. And I remember reading a quote that said, it's like it's not that people are against you, people are losing just for themselves. And I think when you think about it in that way, it sometimes helps you be like, okay, well, not people are not necessarily against me. It's just that they're gonna do what's best for them, just like I got to do what's best.
Looking out for number one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you got to accept. It's kind of like a human, so a lot of people's character. Not everyone, I think, is like that, but you're gonna run across people that are like that.
Well, I mean that's a product I would say, like, even a struggle to rise to the top. I mean, we'll talk about, say, like merit-based societies and stuff like that. I mean, it is a competition. I mean, whether you're competing with yourself, or you're competing with somebody else to get to a point where you want to be or where you think you want to be. So, I mean, you're focused on that. Sometimes you do end up running over somebody else's toes or something like that inadvertently. It's not your intention to cause anybody any harm or any damage, but you just cut somebody off, like, at the intersection, and you look back, oh, sorry, but then you move on.
Yeah. They're having a bad day and they're like, look at this fucker.
Right. This is son of a bitch.
And I think the key message to that is loss is a part of life, and the problem isn't loss. It's when loss turns into losing. And I think that comes back to what you said. It's just like your mentality, how you look at things.
Your inner narrative.
Yeah. And it comes back like losing to me is a part of winning. And I honestly feel that if you don't take losses on the way to winning, when you start doing good, you're eventually going to lose, and it's going to be worse because you're not going to have the skill set to be able to deal with those challenges, like the resolve to know to say, hey, this is not going my way, how to get, find my way out of it. And if you don't believe that, if you look at like real life, I would say, look at Conor McGregor as example, look at Ronda Rousey as example, look at people that were very successful for a big part of their career. And you almost see them like the momentum. You can feel their momentum.
Yeah.
But then they run across people or things that just don't care, and they stop them in their tracks, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you see them usually have a hard time coming back from that, because now it's like, well, that momentum's not carrying them anymore. They're back at square one, which I think would be hard for anyone. But you see that bring them to their knees for years. You know what I mean? And you see it, and a lot of times I want to say it's self-inflicted, but some of it is. Some of it you can tell it's like they start believing what what everyone is saying, like you're undefeatable, you know what I mean? And it's not true. Where you see other guys where they have wins, they have losses, they have wins, they have losses, and you're like, man, how's this dude bouncing back and forth? And it's just because they've come to kind of like they've learned to deal with them, like in more it's more I'm gonna say sustainable, but they learn to take them like the peaks and the valleys of life.
Oh, definitely. I mean, but then there's also the factor too is like you could get to a point in a pursuit where it's just not going any further for you, you know, and then then you got the option of, well, maybe I need to reframe what it is I actually want, or what road I'm going to go down now, but and if you can do that effectively, then you can actually refocus your drive into being success at something else.
Yep. What
Like Conor McGregor, now he's trying to be a politician.
yeah,
He's like, I'm done with fighting.
I'm gonna make, is it whiskey?
I'll go screw with Parliament. Yeah.
They gotta find a new purpose. What do you think? Why do you think most men avoid admitting loss until it's too late?
That's a good question, man.
Any,
I think sometimes it's really just hard to accept something as a loss. You want to think of it more as like a setback and something that you can bounce back from.
yeah,
However, sometimes the bouncing back can just involve a complete and total shift.
Yeah.
You have to move on to the next thing.
yeah,
Rather than keep pursuing the same thing over and over and over.
yeah. Like you said, maybe like kind of look at it from a different perspective and look for a path forward. And it's not going to always be the path that maybe you want. You know what I mean? Or you're like, I want it to be this way, but it's not going to be that way.
Yeah.
But that's still another path for you to pursue to then, things can work out for you, but just in a different way that you don't expect.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's always and I always think about that when anytime I see any type of like, especially on social media posts where it talks about a young guy dying, but they don't mention why.
Yeah.
It really makes me always think about like, did they do something to themselves? Because there's always this bigness behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, so and so, but no one says anything. And so I'm like, well, that's kind of the problem. You know what I mean? It's not to say like you need to put this guy's shit on blast all over what it is. But, maybe if people were a little bit more willing to talk about it, or that person had been more willing to talk about it, then it wouldn't be like now we have to pretend like he just died under mysterious circumstances and no one can answer why. And I get it that sucks, but it's one of those things where, and it's because I see this weird trend, like, and it just happened, or was it the guy that just killed his family and his kids at the hockey game? I don't know if you saw that in the
news. I saw that. Yeah.
And this is my whole thing. I don't care what kind of like man or whatever you want to call yourself, but if you're gonna do something to yourself, do it to yourself. Like, don't do it to your kids. Don't do it to your family. You know what I mean? Like, do that shit to yourself. Like, don't to me. And I don't condone any of that. I don't think that's the solution. But if you really feel that way, doing that to is like,
you're trying not to drag others to it.
It's cowardly. It's basically you're bringing people down with you because you just can't do it yourself. I saw it was a whole documentary about this guy in Hawaii who was I want to say a doctor or a chiropractor or something like that. And he basically, his business started not doing good. This guy wiped out his entire family and everyone was like, oh, he's such a good guy. So like, he wasn't a good guy. I said, because a good guy wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? I don't care like how unsuccessful your business was. I don't care how things weren't going your way. You're not going to wipe out your entire bloodline and be like, nah, he's a really good guy.
Yeah, he meant well.
Yeah, he meant well. We did it because with a good heart. So like, no, and I think people need to be honest about that. And I wouldn't expect if I ever did something like that for people to talk highly of me. Like, they'd be like, hey, maybe he did, right things at a certain point, but him doing that's not acceptable. So, you know what I mean? That's not the way to handle things.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then point number 2 was going to be about how loss compounds and people spiral into hopelessness and the victim identity. And I think he goes back to what you're always talking about, that narrative here. So
the inner narrative, when you get used to a pattern, it becomes comfortable, and so you just keep falling into it because it's expected. And once again, it comes back to where your brain actually will prioritize the predictable, over anything that actually requires change. Yeah.
And do you think that's more, not even, that doesn't even sound like a victim mentality. It just sounds like you draw, and you make everything kind of go towards the same conclusion.
It's a negative feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a form of expectation, that it's like, sometimes you end up kind of maybe subconsciously, just fulfilling, so it's like, you got your own prophecy going on. It's like, I'm doomed. And then you're going to find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. I like the way this word, and I heard this is the word I was looking for earlier, was and this is a science-based term. So it's a learned helplessness. Repeated failure can train the brain to stop trying, not because the man is weak, but because his mind has been conditioned. Like he's conditioned himself to continually lose and believe that he's helpless in his situation. And that, so he just, like you said, that narrative, now it becomes like the path. Everything goes to that path.
Yeah.
Where no one can relate to them. No one can understand what's going on with them. They're like, they believe themselves to be like this, like, all the woes of the world fall upon their shoulders.
Right. You'll never understand what I've been through.
Never understand.
Yeah.
Oh, and so I put it someone's important social media posts that people don't just reflect on loss. They turn it into a personality. And this kind of goes into where sometimes when I see people posting things on social media, it's not that that they're not trying to tell their story. I get what they're trying to do, but sometimes it's more about like blaming everyone around them. There's no insightful like thought to it. It's more like if I was on there like, Dave did me so wrong. We had the podcast and Dave fucked it all up and this and that. Instead of thinking like, well, maybe was I doing something, like maybe our way we couldn't agree, or there's no, sometimes not joint of what each person participated in. It's like completely the other person's fault, and they come off more like that, like a victim of a circumstance.
The lack of ownership. I mean, is basically, everything's happening to me. I didn't play a role in this at all. I was just the innocent bystander and everything. Yeah.
And how do you tell the difference between a man who healed and a man versus a man who's bitter?
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, a man who's bitter is always focused on yesterday. Yeah. I mean, they always go back to it, and they'll get trapped in that where it's like that's their comfort zone, and it's like if you try to pull them out of it, they'll fight you over it.
This is my home.
Yeah. So no, but it goes back to like you'll never understand what I've been through.
Yeah.
They like that victimhood. And I find it was some of the people I run into who have that.
Yeah.
It's like they don't, it's not like they're keeping something inside either. It's like they'll go to like everybody, and but they won't even let they're going to everybody. So I don't tell anybody this, but I went through this and that and that and that, and it's like, and then you try to like have some kind of insight for, oh, you'll never understand. And then you find out that they've told everybody in the room the exact same thing in the exact same manner. It's like they like the attention, but it's like they don't want to be pulled out of it, because then it's like, oh, sir, now I have to completely reshape myself.
They relish in the negativity of it.
I mean, it is a form of attention, and some kind of affirmation of like, oh, sir, yeah, okay, you've had it rough.
Yeah.
Now what? And then that now what just kind of bounces off of them. Like, there's I don't want to hear about now what. Yeah. Just stay back yesterday, because, that's all I know, and that's all I ever want to know.
Yeah, and I think everyone in different circumstances, because everyone's had a different life, can had things that were done to them right or wrong, or different things, and some people worse than others. But you always see, like you said, that how people, their perspective on things really determines how they end up moving past it or not past it, and then allows them to have some kind of growth. And I think that's the key factor in not having a bad attitude. I think people that have continual bad attitudes are, like you said, they're constantly repeating the same narrative. Nothing really is their fault. There's no ownership of what's going on to them. It's just basically, it's almost, they're existing to be, the galaxy's punching bag.
Yeah, right.
and no one can help them. And I think that's a bad place to be, because eventually, you kind of create your own environment, because people will stop wanting to be around people like that. I'm pretty sure they have a hard time finding relationships, because no one wants to be married to an anchor, or, dating an anchor where they're just dragging them down constantly. So now you're kind of, it's more, you're creating, like you said, that narrative. So now you feel more alone, and now it's like, it's not their fault again. It's everyone else's fault, because they can't understand what they're going through. And
you can tell sometimes it's like they really like that kind of like that sympathy attention.
Yeah.
But they quickly find out it's like that credit line runs out really fast.
Yeah.
It is like, and then the person that they're soaking that up from just moved on to something else, and then they got to find somebody else to try to melt.
To someone else to make them feel better.
Yeah.
So point number 3 is because we always want to talk about what's the solution. We don't want to be one of these podcasts where they just sit there, and I see it all the time, especially when it comes to just politics and stuff nowadays. Guys are just like, it's weird because they champion the most negative things, and it's a weird thing to see, especially from just guys. Like they talk very smart. They seem like they're intellectual, or they come across smart, but then they'll say like some of the dumbest things ever. They'll just be like, I hope this happens. I hope this happens. I hope people get fired. Everything's very negative. And I've seen that from a lot of these big podcasters lately. And I'm just like, I feel like they've gotten lost in their own space. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're so lost in it that they can't even see what they're doing, because I feel, this is just my perception, but I think in the social media space, I think negativity always gets more attention than positive stuff. Like we can sit here and talk positive things all day long, but in negative always shows more of it always garners you more attention. I don't know. I don't really know why, because it just is who really wants to, relish in negative things, but it just seems to be like a pattern.
You tend to focus more intensely on something that just pissed you off.
Yeah.
That's the reason behind that.
You're like, son of a
yeah, that motherfucker. Yeah. So yeah. So that's specifically designed that way. I mean, and it is. It's what they call clickbait, or it's going for rating.
Rage. Yeah.
So it's just like, they're throwing something out there to get you into that focused state, so you stay with them.
Yeah, stay with the hate.
Yeah.
That's not the thing to me. I just see it, and I just think I'm like, the people find this like even entertaining, because I'm at the point where I don't even click on the videos. I might look at the description of what they're saying. That's about it. Like I don't even waste any time watching it. I'm just like, nah, I could tell they're just doing it for attention. and I don't like that. It's just kind of like, it kind of loses any value of what they're trying to say. Sometimes even they might have a good message, but it's already lost, in the ether.
But the negativity does keep you more locked down.
Yeah.
I mean, if you did actually focus more on, say, like positive stuff, so man, today's beautiful. It's like, well, let's move on over here to see what's happening over here. Yeah, I mean, you feel more free to just kind of like, to move yourself about and experience more things.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you're negative, again, you're intensely focused on that thing that's really, eating at you.
And so I put, with us being here to talk about problems, and we're here to just talk about problems, build solutions. And solution 1 is to separate the loss from your identity. A loss is something that happened to you and is not who you are, and don't take the pain personally. Even though it personally happened to you, which is hard.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I like
someone's out to get me aspect of it. Yeah.
The line I put was don't wear defeat like a name tag. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Don't associate being a loser with who you are. Look at me back. I'm the one that got, hurt.
Yeah.
I said this thing, it was funny when I first got on the social media where I said, no one cares what your ex-girlfriend did to you. People used to laugh about that out there. Like, what does that mean? I'm like, they're like, no one cares that your ex did you wrong, or that she hurt your feelings or whatever. I said, your real goal should be, what are you doing moving forward, and what are you doing for yourself? That's the real, and not even out of vindictiveness. Like you shouldn't be trying to do good to be like, let me prove people wrong. You know what I mean? But I think it's one of those things where it's like when people are constantly stuck in that space where it's just like, let me just keep talking about how wrong I was done, and they can't ever move past it. And this is not just a thing I've seen in, people in relationships, but, being in law enforcement, I saw it too, where guys would constantly be referring to things that happened to them, like earlier in their career, like it just happened to them the day before, and they can't move past it. I remember this one time this guy fucked me over, and now it's just like that's associated with them. And it's just like, okay, well, who hasn't been, fucked over at some point? Like, let's move past it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, focusing just on that, that one kind of downside to anything that happens, man, is always going to keep you held back. Yeah. So as far as like a solution or anything like that, it's hard to come up with like a really kind of blanket plan for every situation.
You need a concrete solution, Nate.
I mean, honestly, I think it's got to be individually based, and it's got to be focused on what's of value to you, rather than what broke you, and what is holding you back. Is what is of value to you, and what can you do to enhance that?
So like, what's the rebuilding process, not the demolition?
Right.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
What can I salvage out of this wreck?
Yep. So we put a solution 2 is stack up small wins, to show up anyways, train anyways, make the call anyways, keep promises to yourself, and rebuild momentum. And I think even in that guy that I saw who was,
I can relate a lot to that,
yeah.
actually.
Well, one of the things that was crazy, there's a guy in there. So he was talking about losing his brother. His brother got killed by a drunk driver or a distracted driver on that show alone. It's on Netflix if anyone wants to check it out. It's a pretty good show. So he's building like a little log cabin. He's doing something, and you could tell he's going pretty hard at it. You could tell he's there, but his mind is thinking about, because in that survival situation, it's calories in, calories out. So he even says, I'm burning a lot of calories doing this, but he's almost like, I don't say he doesn't care, but he's just like, I'm going all out, because he's thinking about his brother. And so when he's doing that, he hears a squirrel. So then he's able to get the squirrel because he hasn't had food. And then when he gets the squirrel, he uses a part of the squirrel to then get fish, and then he gets the fish and ends up catching like 4 to 5 fish. And I thought that was like the craziest like kind of reflection of life sometimes, where it's like, here you are building, you're like, fuck, nothing's, no one's patting you in the back. He's just out there in the woods by himself thinking, right. And he's thinking about, his brother that died. He's thinking about all these things going on with them. And then he sees a squirrel. He takes the time to, he's able to get some food, and then turn that into a better opportunity. And I think that's a lot of things. I think that shows like hard work. It shows that even when things are going bad, to keep working. I think it also kind of shows a little bit sometimes how, like, I think God works in that way, where it's like you're given the opportunity, but do you take it? And if he hadn't killed that squirrel, he would have never got those fish. Yeah. And if he never got those fish, he would still be hungry. That's what I thought about when I saw that whole thing. I'm like, this is like kind of like what people don't do, but a lot of people, they'll sit there in the woods, not build their cabin, not shoot that squirrel, not to get that fish, and just say, I'm starving.
That one, it's kind of like that snowball effect.
Yeah.
It starts out that one small little win, and then it just keeps progressing upwards. And and next thing you know, you're back on top.
And you said you could relate to that a lot, those stacking up those small wins.
So when you went into specifics of like the showing up anyway, and stuff like that, that was the thing that I think kind of saved me from spiraling down. Yeah. At one point. It's just, even though I had the attitude of like, it's like, oh, fucking, if life wants to take me out, come and get me. Yeah. But they're still showing up to work, bust my ass, my workouts, but then I get into like all sorts of weird other shit after that, after that schedule, and just be like, fuck it, Yeah. But the showing up kept me on my feet.
No, I believe it. I have a friend, hopefully we'll get him on the show one day. I don't know if he'll ever talk about it, but I remember one time we were working out at the gym, and me and him always do burpees together. And he told me about, he done like, I think 10 years in prison. He had got out. He said he couldn't get a job. So he got a job as, I think, picking produce in the field. He said he was sleeping in his car. And I could tell when he was telling me, it's like, not like he was telling me like in a sad way, but it was like a hurt way. You know what I mean? Like from experiencing that. And he was saying, like he's all, and now, he has a good job in construction. He was getting his license for being a truckie. And I think he was even thinking about starting a business. And I think you could see in his eyes reflecting from where he started to where he was at. And like you said, it was just showing up. You know what I mean? Because every time I see this dude, we do burpees, we knock him out. And it's always the same mentality. When people always ask me like, why I like burpees, it's simple. You get down, you get up, and that's kind of how life is. You know what I mean? Yeah. You get knocked down, you get back up. You get knocked down, you get back up. And to me, that relates to anything. I tell guys that are, whether it's life or law enforcement, whatever, like, or just in a fight in general, like, that's what's going to happen. You're going to get knocked down, and you need to just get back up. You can't lay there feeling sorry for yourself. Just jump fucking back up. Yeah.
And to kind of, more related to personal experiences, even if you're still in that place where it's like you don't really understand the purpose of why you're doing it, you can still create that as a habit. You get up every day and you got it. It's like, I really just don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But there's something that drives you. It's just because you're getting your ass up. You're going to go do it, And if you got that habit, you can sustain yourself to like the point where you do find like a certain acceptance, or maybe even a revelation of like, well, that's the lesson I was supposed to learn, you know? Now it's all clear, you know?
But you don't see it like from when you're going through it.
And it can take a long time, you know, but again, the showing up, just getting up, you know, because you woke up anyway. The fuck else are you gonna do?
Do it.
You know,
do it.
You get up and do something. You know.
Well, when me and you were like last week, me and you talked, and I was telling Dave about so the whole concept of why the whole Good Leader brand started when I got out of law enforcement was to do start the social media following, the podcast, to start the brand. And then, and then meeting Dave and Miguel and kind of meeting people that go along with that. And I was telling Dave how, the big main concept had always been to like a men's shed, right? Like have like a gym with a podcast and conference room and things like that. And when I was telling you the last week and we were talking about it, I said, this would be crazy if one day, like we're talking about how we started and how this all went from one place to the other, you know what I mean? But it always reminds me of when, what I tell people was like, I remember when I was going through my divorce and I had to go back to my mom's house. And I always tell people about this, where you could be personally successful, professionally successful, but personally still not doing good. Right. So that's how it was. It's like, I was a sergeant in my department, but I was sleeping at my mom's house because I didn't have a place to stay yet.
Right.
So when that was going on, I remember sitting on the sofa and thinking like, well, I can't sit here and be angry or anything about it. So I really need to realize like sometimes you got to go back to where you started to remember where you're going, type of thing. So, flash forward like a couple years, and I remember sitting in my house when I had just got like a new house, and I was like, fuck, I remember sitting on the sofa in my mom's house thinking about how I wanted to get this house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, that's the way I look at this. That's the way I look at all of this. Like I look at it like, well, when I started, I was just doing the podcast on my own, telling people about it, learning the things. I'm like, okay, now I know Miguel, now I know Dave, listening to Steve talk about the business things, networking with people and people that now they want to come on the podcast. It's kind of a crazy thing to me where I'm like, this is it. It's like the same thing kind of happening all over. So, when people tell me like, how do you keep like a positive attitude, is because I know this is all part the struggle is part of the process of getting there. And then when you get there, you can kind of like, okay, well, that's what it was worth, all the ups and downs or this and that. But you got to, like you said, like stay the course, you know what I mean? And kind of stack up and dish. And you got to show up anyways when it doesn't matter. Fucking 0 viewers or 100,000 viewers, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Like you have to treat everything like it's like what is it? It's like that poem, If. You got to treat wins and losses like they're the same thing.
Yeah. I saw something on like Instagram actually that was like a perfect like kind of metaphor for this kind of a path I went through at one point. Mm-hmm. It was this meme.
Money, cash, hose.
Well, that too, but no, it was this way. It was captioned. It was a clip scene out of the show Game of Thrones, and it was like the scene where like Jon Snow was like, like I guess his friend was killed. He was charging like the lines of the enemy or whatever by himself, gets shot off his horse or there, and then he's standing there alone as this cavalry is bearing down on him, and he just kind of like accepts the fact. It's like, oh sir, this is but his caption is like, oh sir, when I thought I had lost. And God, didn't answer my prayers. Yeah. And then and so you see him, he draws his sword, he just faces it down. Yeah. He's like, all right, fine, come on, bring it. Yeah. But then God's army comes in, and saves the day. And then it's like, man, that's a moment of reflection. And I think after, something like that, I mean, my faith is actually really more solidified. And so it's like, I could have, say something not work out or something like that. And it's like, I'm immediately to the thought of like, there's a purpose for this. Yeah. There's a purpose. I know there is. Yeah. So it's like, it'll be revealed to me when it's ready. Yeah. So I just got to keep driving forward, whatever roadblock is here, I'm either going to go through it, over it, under it, around it, whatever. Yeah. But I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. The reason why will be revealed at a later date.
Yeah, losses are not going to always be losses. And I think it's also, like you said, it's when you're kind of, like I posted that thing the other day, and that's what I was thinking about was the, like defeat is either like a grave or it's your forge kind of thing. And that kind of comes from that mentality where I think some people, when they're facing like overwhelming odds, it's a reason to like submit or to relinquish. Okay, I'm done. Or I'm fucked. Or in some people, it's more of a like, no, I'm gonna go. Like I'm gonna fight. Like I'm gonna go out on my feet type of shit.
Even if I'm standing alone,
Yeah,
I'm gonna face it down.
Yeah, and I think that's where you show your character, not to, to other people may see it, but it's also to yourself. And I think that's where confidence comes from.
Yes.
Because now when you're facing other things, once you made it through stuff like that, yeah, it could be hard and it sucks, but you face it with a different confidence, a different like vigor, a different more resilience. You can say, no, I've been through shit like this before. Like, yeah, it sucks, but we can see the way forward. There's a way forward.
Yeah.
We just gotta, like you said, we gotta just like calm ourselves down and look for that way forward. And there's gonna be, and it'll work out. There's a purpose behind all of this.
Absolutely.
Also the solution theory put is control your inputs to rebuild your circle. And I put like, stop doom scrolling. So stop looking at a lot of bullshit. And to me, you can see that easily in social media. Like I look at a lot of different content, like, and you look at a lot of guys that are kind of doing along the lines of what we're doing, positive stuff. And I mean, honestly, I want to make sometimes like funny, reels about it. It's like we're competing against, girls doing RDLs. Like
those big booty Latinas always come through, man, when I hit them.
In the amount of views, and it's like crazy. It's like you're competing against, like, not because you're in the same space, but as far as like people's attention, you'll see like, positive male influence or things like that, or talking about mental health, and it's like, and
yesterday today, and it's always a shot of her ass.
Yeah. And you're like this and this, and you're like, okay. Like, so I guess it just kind of shows sometimes where people's frame of mind is at, but it's kind of funny in that way. You have to like you said, you don't look at it like you just laugh at it, kind of like it's just like whatever,
Yeah.
But it kind of shows you sometimes where people's minds are at, with stuff.
Yeah.
Stop feeding bitterness, stop hanging around people who complain and blame, and get around men who are building. Because I think same thing we talked about when Steve was here. If you're around good people and people that are trying to do stuff, you're not sitting there talking about like, oh, woe is me. You're thinking about like, how can we move forward and, conquer this shit.
Absolutely.
And then solution 4, how do you turn your loss into a lesson and not a life sentence? And I think you kind of spoke to that. And with your experience of kind of like, did you feel like when you kind of came out of prison or anything like that, it was like starting from square one? And I think you kind of, to me, it's like you're like, maybe it's a continual process for you. Like, I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, so it's interesting because it was right like the point in my life where I really started kind of gaining my faith back.
Yeah.
That's when I landed into prison.
Yeah.
But it was cool because I had that.
Yeah.
Because I went in and I was like, oh, sir, this place got nothing for me.
Yeah.
It's like I say, I'm not going to play their game. I'm going to do it my way, all that sort of stuff. If there's a price I have to pay for it, fine. If I have to make somebody else pay a price for it, fine.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get through it.
Yeah.
And it was really like the whole mindset. It's like, there's a purpose to this.
Yeah.
There is a purpose to this. And so each day it was like, I don't know, I could get freaking stabbed today or something like that, but it's like, but I would go, hey, God, whatever happens, just be there, I'll take whatever, and I'll stand for you. I'll stand for me, and I'll try to do this thing right.
It sounds like what is that story from but I'm trying to remember because I didn't hear it not too long ago when the guys are in the fire. It's like the 3 of them, and everyone says there was like, oh, there was 4 men in there. You know what I mean? And
right.
They talk about Jesus being in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is. Sometimes it's like, hey, you're saying, hey, I'm like you said. I think it kind of does make sense. Or maybe in hindsight now, what you're saying, like your faith grew more, and maybe it's God's way of saying, well, let's see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, are you gonna waver when it doesn't go your way, and you're like, you don't, and then things go your way? You know what I mean? Because sometimes we still, it's like we've already made choices, and that's where I see a lot of the things now where you see a lot of people where and I don't like that, and I'll say this for people that are Christian, right? If you see people that you didn't like, you don't agree with their lifestyle, but now they're trying to make better choices, then stop continuing to talk about whatever you think they didn't do right before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like kind of like learn to be like, hey, we're not perfect, and let them and see if they improve instead of, and try to maybe help them on their way forward rather than to continue to say, well, remember when you in kindergarten when you did this and I didn't like it? Like, no,
right.
Like that I don't like that when I see that. Just kind of, it's retarded. It's people that think they're just better than everyone else, and I think they give people that are actually that have faith a bad name. And I don't think, I always tell people, I said, I think we're a different type of Christian. I think we joke around, we cuss, we talk shit, but we don't claim to not do that. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, I never do that. And so, but it's like that's who we are, and people can't judge you unless they also been in your shoes. You know what I mean?
Well, Jesus didn't just come for the righteous, man. He came for the sinners too.
He was a gang leader.
That's right.
What's one daily rep that always pulls you out of a bad place? If you ever feel like you're getting in a bad place, I don't know if you ever feel like that anymore.
So, I mean, I haven't really hit a point where I felt like, things were crashing down around me, in a good amount of time.
Yeah.
But one thing that does really kind of set the tone for my day is, one of the first meaningful accomplishments I have is a workout. You get a workout in, man. That's a sure win.
Yes.
Even if it's like you can't make it to the gym, man, you do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, just gonna take a run around the block, something like that. Bust a sweat. It clears your head. It prepares you for whatever you might have to deal with in the course of a day. I mean, I always tell people when I start my day out like that, it's like the rest of the day has got nothing for me. Everything's handled easy.
There's a good book called from Admiral McRaven called Make Your Bed. I think it's called Make Your Bed. And it's the same concept. It's like starting your day off with simple wins, like brushing, like making your bed, take a shower, work out. Like those simple wins compound off of each other because now you're doing these little things that you said that you were going to do. And it gives you that momentum moving into the day forward. Because whether people believe it or not, if you don't do those little things, you're not going to do the big things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, eventually everything starts, it's like if you're all focused on work and you just jump up, leave your house all shitty, then go work all hard, then you come home and you're like, fuck, my house is all dirty.
Yeah.
It's like kind of making your environment like more sustainable to you. You know what I mean? To fostering success rather than, wasting energy on continually having to do things that you could have done before. Yeah. Which I think is easy to fall into because every day, we're kind of doing the same, some of the same things. So you tend to feel like, oh, I got to do this.
Yeah. But that's also a good point. I mean, I have like, your home base. I mean, your which should be, your castle, your safe zone, have that dialed in, at all times. I mean, because any kind of disorder, is just going to throw your patterns off.
Yep. No, I agree. I think having a good space reflects kind of on everything, how everything looks and everything. I mean, it's the same thing as, when you walk in the gym, I think when Sabrina talked about like, hey, because, from this gym being Stronghold to now, right? Yeah. It's that, how do things look, whether people want to admit it or not? Like so one of the first levels of force is I want to say perspective, is presence. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So even I used to say it, I said, you could be the dumbest police officer ever. You don't know shit, but at least if you look squared away, yeah. Like, people will assume like, no, this guy knows what he's doing. Yeah. And that's kind of what it is. It kind of sets that tone like, hey, everything's not going my way, but it kind of looks like it is. So maybe it will be,
Some people might call that feng shui.
Yeah. So the key message we want to give to everyone is, loss is normal and defeat is optional. It's not going to always go the way that you want it. And that loss is always going to be is part of being alive. And the problem is that when loss turns into losing. So you got to remember that you're not going to always win, and you shouldn't expect to, and you should kind of look at losses as sometimes it's just a lesson or shortcomings. And that clip that I posted up today of Sabrina talking about that, where she says that, I don't like to say this, but I took a lot of last place trophies, and she was talking about shooting. Yeah. And that kind of shows someone that's like, hey, I did this, but it's part of the journey of getting better. You know what I mean? And then when you look at it later and someone else is like, I wasn't a good shooter, which to me, I always tell people I wasn't a good shooter. When I started shooting guns, I was not a good shooter. I felt like my strength, honestly, when I tell people whether it was the military or law enforcement, what allowed me to excel was I was a person who got good over time because I didn't feel like I was naturally good at anything. I didn't feel like I was good at just naturally working out. I wasn't a natural runner. I wasn't a natural shooter. None of that shit. So I always felt like I would pay attention more, try harder, and then over time, I would literally beat people through attrition.
Right.
Like I would see guys I used to be, good, and then I would basically I would pass them at some point. And I always tell this, it's like a story of the so when I was doing the one of our class awards was like, who's the PT stud of the class, right? So there was a guy who me and him were up for it. And so we did our push-ups, and I'm not gonna say he did shitty push-ups, but he did. But anyways, he did. But anyways, people were still like,
Glad we dodged that one.
yeah. But so but they still had us kind of like neck and neck with that, and it came down to the run. And when we were doing the run, he literally walked up to me and said, "Oh, I'm not gonna go that hard." Like, so he walked up to me and said, "I'm not gonna go that hard on the run." And I swear, as soon as they hit I can't remember, said go, this fucker just busted out in a full out sprint. Like, so and I think it was 2 miles. I think we're running 2 miles. So he just is running a full sprint. So I am like, okay, I'm gonna stay close to behind him. And I said, when we get to like the 3/4 of a mile, I said, I gotta break his spirit. I gotta see if he really wants to go. And I said, so as soon as we got to the 3/4 miles, I ran past him. I said, if he stays up with me, then it's going to be just a race to the end.
Yeah.
If he starts falling back, then he's done.
Right.
And that's what I did. As soon as I passed him, I just saw him getting farther and farther back. And it's one of those things I always remember that. Like, sometimes people are going to tell you like, hey, like, yeah, don't try. That's kind of what I felt. He told me like, hey, don't try. Don't worry. You got it.
So the tortoise and the hare story right there.
Yeah. And so, and if I would have believed that, then I think I would have already been like, oh, fuck, I'm fucked, and just relinquish myself to losing it. But I kind of was like, no, let me kind of strategize a little bit. And I think I could still win this. And this comes down to that. It's little stories like that, I think, that help, people. And those are little things that will happen to you in life, just kind of,
right.
You gotta believe in your story more than what someone's telling you.
Right. Absolutely.
Do you have any last points, Dave, you want to make on our topic for today?
I think a good practice too. I mean, because you talked about a lot about things going the way you want and all that sort of stuff. I think drop some of your fucking expectations. The future's not written. Rarely does anything actually go to plan. You should actually treat them more as like you're going to run into something that's going to give you an opportunity to learn something, and be ready for that. Because it's not going to work out the way you want. It's not going to go to plan at all times. You have to know how to move past that, though.
Dave's like, I'm getting all the dime pieces, so you guys better accept those sixes. It's not going to go the way that you want.
I'll take the win.
I want to do our special sponsor shout outs as always to Gain Station for letting us use the facility for the podcast.
Home of the Good Leader podcast.
Yep. Easy F Media, Miguel, for all your podcast needs. The Good Leader podcast, that's us, of course, The Good and Dangerous. Follow us on Instagram, and you can support us on goodleader.shop. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and also share this podcast or any of our clips with people that need it. We're always trying to talk about things that men need, and I know it's not always the most popular things or things that are going to, send the algorithm going crazy, but they're things that need to be talked about. And I think me and Dave always talk about, we get a lot of messages from a lot of guys that kind of relate to what we're talking about, because if you look at what's being fed to guys, it's a lot of I want to say bullshit, but it is bullshit. a lot of the, right before I got here, I was literally watching a streamer literally post like this, where some like these kids are like roided out of their minds, arguing with girls, yelling at guys, talking about, how they're look maxing. And it's the craziest shit that I've ever seen. And I'm just like, these kids are lost. So it's just, make sure you share it with, other men like us, and we'll just continue to move forward, and we'll beat people through attrition.
It's like I got a random message the other day. Yeah. Just a guy I didn't even know was following me, but it's just a short message. I love what you're doing, brother. Keep it up.
Hell yeah.
And hey, it's a blessing to be able to try to get anything out that might actually hit somebody personally.
Yeah, it's always it's good.
Yeah.
Good shit. Anything, Miguel? All right.
All right.
We'll continue our tour of global domination.